I'll tell you about the GTE process, how it works, and basically we will talk about the CSU, Sturt University. So the training will be based on CSU as an example. And so please, if you have any questions, I'm sure you'll have a question. You will have some questions, definitely. So you can type it here. You can leave your questions. I will read them out loud in the end of the session. I'll do my best to answer all your questions, but just in case, if it's like a case-by-case basis, you had some students, because there might be some different cases with students, different situations. So please feel free to drop me a line. You'll have my Skype, or I'll definitely send you the materials afterwards, after we finish the training session. So you'll have all my contact details. So for the case-by-case cases, I suggest we talk individually, and well, we will then try to find the solution. So I'm sure for most of you it will be just a refreshment training as a session, nothing new basically, but anyway, it's good to have it from time to time. So let's start. GT session, Sturt University Study Center, both Sydney and Melbourne. So what is the GTE? First of all, it's a quite on the one hand, it can be kind of not so excited in terms of covering this topic, but it will be quite useful in terms of knowledge, in terms of practical things. So you will have all this information, and you will be experts on how to apply to CSU and get your students admitted and be quite successful in getting the visa to Australia in the end. So that's why I believe it's going to be a beneficial session for everybody. So the agenda, how we're going to work today, so what we're going to cover. So first of all, the GTE overview, like what is the GTE, what is the SVP process, what's the focus for Australia immigration border. And then we will move to the admission overview, how it works at CSU, the admission process, what documents we need to submit, what forms we need to send, to make sure you understand it all. And otherwise, it might just result in some delays, from the admission side, from our side. So it's better to have the clear understanding of what we need to submit at once, just to be very successful and to get the timely responses from the team. So the admission overview, then we will move to the GTE assessment. So we will talk more in more details about the assessment process, about the then about the financial assessment process, what is required, which forms, what kind of questions student may be asked, etc., etc. So there are those 4 main blocks of the session today that we will cover in more details one by one. So let's start. I hope you are very excited about this. Sorry. So the purpose of the training, basically, and the aim of the SVP training, and SVP stands for Streamlined Visa Process in Australia. So the purpose of the training is just basically to, first of all, develop a better understanding of and learning of the process, of course, that can improve the quality of your applications and ease the assessment process. So basically the main idea, my goal is just to develop your understanding, to make sure you refresh your knowledge, to make sure you understand which documents, which forms we need to submit at once, and get the timely responses and be successful with the assessment process with our CSU team. Well, it's and actually, well, this knowledge, as I said, will help us be very successful and minimize student visa refusals, which is a very, very important thing. Because, as you know, Sturt University is a well-established product. It's well known everywhere globally. It's a good school in terms of investments from student side and return on those investments. So it's a kind of a right balance between the quality of education and the price of education. Amazing locations in Sydney and Melbourne, amazing programs which are in demand in Australia, mostly business and IT, well, accounting, and also internship. So that's why CSU is very popular, and we need to be very clear on the process, how to apply and how to be successful with the assessment. Okay, well, so GTE overview. So GTE stands for Genuine Temporary Entrance. SVP, as I said, is a streamlined visa processing. So SVP as a process was introduced in March 2012. So it's been since some time already. And what does it mean for us, for our student? It means that with a confirmation of enrollment, it's called ECOE. E stands for Electronic Confirmation of Enrollment, because it's a kind of a final documents, a kind of confirmation invitation from the university, where the university confirms that the student can apply for visa, that he was enrolled and was successful within the enrollment and the admission process to a particular course. So that's basically confirmation of enrollment. It's our document which is sent by email, and where with this document our students apply for a visa. So with this confirmation of enrollment from a participating university in Australia at bachelor or master's level, we don't offer doctoral programs, but mostly bachelor and master's level, students will be assessed as though they were a lower migration risk similar to assessment level 1. So regardless of their country of origin, regardless of their nationality, students who are applying to our university partners, those and all our university partners, and including CSU, of course, are participating into this SVP process. So those students have easier process applying for visas. So it means that they are assessed as being there at lower migration risk. So the lowest migration risk of assessment level risk is number 1, based on the Australian Department of Immigration and Border Protection. So it's quite it's very convenient, it's very useful, it makes our life easier, and so that's why and it makes our process applying to visa easier as well. Streamlined visa processing. Oh well, and so actually the objective, the purpose of this streamlined visa process, which was introduced by the DIAC, Australian Department of Immigration and Border Protection, was just to show a greater transparency, to minimize the visa fraud and cancellation, so better monitoring of visa holders, and so to have a better control of visa conditions and attract genuine overseas students. So basically this process is quite it's a challenge, but it's a big advantage. It's a big step forward from Australia, I think, towards higher education applicants. And so that is why the SVP focus actually shifted from quantity to quality, you know, talking about the genuine students, the genuine temporary entrance. So these must be quality students. I'm sure you know what does it mean. So how it works before the SVP and now with the SVP process. In terms of documents, we always need to submit the application form and supporting documents to the admission officer, so the application package. Then we receive our confirmation of enrollment, and then we apply for visa. So what happened before the SVP process was introduced? So students needed first of all, to submit their academic documents and meet the academic entry requirements. Then they would need to submit this offer of acceptance and tuition fees. And then, so what happened at the last stage, so the Department of Immigration and Border Protection required detailed financial evidence documents from a student held for 3-6 months in a bank. So it means that the students, it was a bit more challenging because we needed to submit the documents that were sitting in the bank documents with a high amount of money covering like the whole year of the tuition fees and living expenses, but the main requirements from the immigration office was that this amount should have been sitting with the bank for 3 to 6 months. So it means there must be some time for this money to be within the bank. And then the visa itself, the visa process, applying for a visa, took from 4 to 6 weeks. It was a visa turnaround time. So bank statement thing and also the visa turnaround time. So altogether, it's it's been a challenging process for both students and agents, I believe, the pre-SVP process. Now, when the SVP is introduced, the streamlined process is introduced. So what is happening now at the moment? So students would need to send again their academics documents, their application to the university, and also demonstrate their knowledge about the university, demonstrate their motivation to go study in Australia, like their true, genuine motivation just to study in Australia. And also they would need to submit some financial documents as well. It's not necessarily the bank statement they would need to submit, but the bank statement is the most common document students usually ask to provide. But also for the financial document, it can be everything like loans, some ownership, property, well, basically everything they have, maybe letter from the official letter, reference letter from an employer that stated that student is, that the candidate is has been employed since this and that time, and he's been employed, and he has a monthly salary equal to this and that amount. So it can be different type of financial documents at the moment, in addition to bank statement or instead of the bank statement. Also, the responsibility is now at the university level. The responsibility, how to say, to screen the students, to check their to check their motivation, to check their interest, to check their future study career plans. So all the responsibility is at the university level at the moment, rather than the Department of Immigration and Border Control. That's why filling the visa application is the final stage, and the visa turnaround time is now almost 2 weeks. But before this, the GTE process, the assessment from the university, so all these, all the procedures are held by the university, and the responsibility is actually more at the university level. So that's why I just would like to underline and explain this to you guys, that actually, when university, when Charles Sturt University asks your students to provide some clarification, to provide some more facts and details, it's just because it's their responsibility. It is the university license. It's their reputation. It's their accreditation. That's why they ask so many things, so many details, so many clarification from a different standpoint. So don't be just offended or how to say, even irritated by this fact, because sometimes it can be annoying, I understand, but it's just because it's just to make it easier, to make sure your students will get a almost guaranteed visa to Australia. They will be very successful in the end, at the final stage when filling the visa application. So Any questions around this? If yes, so please text it in the question box, and uh, I'll answer them then in the end. Just have a thought about what are just covered. So for SVP and for pre-SVP and post-SVP process, I believe it makes sense. So to my experience, to my knowledge, I believe it's quite a useful procedure, and it does make sense to us. So then the admission overview. Here we will talk in more details about the admission process, what documents Sturt would require from you and at which stage. So what we need to do, where we need to start with. So the application, we have an application form from Sturt University. You can download it from your partner's website, and you can send me an email and I will send it to you, or you can send an email to our partner sales manager responsible for particular region. They will share it with you. So the first stage, we need to submit the application package, and then the application form, the transcript. So I'll tell you the more details later on, slide by slide. So the application is sent to the admission team. When sending the application to the admission team, just make sure you also have your URN number. URN number is your agency number. So if you're not sure about your agency number, or if you don't know the agency number, the agency number, URN number, it's like our internal, your agency number within the study group record. So just please ask us, my colleagues and myself, so we will provide you with this number, and you should keep it. And always, when sending the application package, please indicate it in the title, in the subject line of your email. The admission team, we have the CSU admission at studygroup.com. So this is the main address to send the new the new packagers. But also, please, always, I suggest, for any support, for any assistance you may need, please copy myself in, or your relative or your partner sales manager that is responsible for your region. So to keep everybody in the loop, so to make sure everybody on the same page, and in case you need any kind of a help, assistant to chase the application, to follow up on your case, so we will be able to assist you shortly then. So after you send the application with your URN number and the documents, and you copy it in your partner sales manager and your brand person, that is myself, then it's gonna it is moving to the GTE assessment level. So the GTE assessment level means that we have a team dedicated to either interview the students, because for some regions we do have phone interviews with students, or Skype interviews. It means like there is a person from the team, from the CSU team, who will be calling the students for a 15-20 minutes conversation, just to ask the very basic question, like very straightforward question, just to understand the motivation, just to understand if your student is genuine or not. So this is the GTE assessment. Then it comes to academic assessment. So, well, the admission team will look into the GPA, will look into the IELTS or TOEFL score, so to estimate the academic level of a candidate. Once it's done, then it comes to conditional offer stage. GTE is fine, student is approved, academic assessment is done, then it's gonna then after that the admission team issue conditional offer. So the student will get the conditional offer, the congratulation email, and so it will be sent to you as an agent. You can share it with the student, and then the next stage is to, if the student is interested and is going to, and I'm sure they would like to process to process and to continue the process, the admission process, then we would need to submit the financial assessment documents. Those financial assessment documents that I've mentioned, it can be not only the bank statement, which is the most common document, but also the any kind of a confirmation of any loans, property ownership, employment letter, etc., etc. So tax income papers. And the financial assessment is also done by the CSU team, the special department. It can take up to a couple of days as well. And then once it's done, so the student would need to make an advance payment and get unconditional offer and the electronic confirmation of enrollment, which is sent to you by email, and then we are all ready to apply for a visa. And the visa turnaround time, as I said now, for the SVP universities partners is around 2 weeks, but it can be even 10-15 days, depends on the country, depends on the region. Well, if but I'm sure I do believe it won't happen. It won't happen with us after our training. But if there are any on any stage, on any step, there is a refusal from the admission team, so the decision would be sent to you as an agent, and then you need to share it with the student. But once the refusal has been sent, it would be quite difficult to, to reapply for the process again. That's why I do suggest we just be very attentive and careful about at every stage of the application process on every step, just because it's quite difficult to reapply, to be honest, from the experience, to reconsider the case. There can be exceptions, of course, but it's quite difficult to push the team for the reconsideration, for the to reapply for the university. So some more details about the application materials, what we need to submit, what documents we need to submit. So first of all, when we requesting the conditional offer as a first stage number 1, we would need to complete and sign the CSU application form, which is available everywhere on the website, on the partner's website, or we can send it to you. Also, we have a student assessment sheet. It's a must document to submit as well at stage number 1, because student assessment sheet is basically the questionnaire that will prepare your student for the next step, for the GTE interview. So it's a must. It's an obligatory document, and you would need to sit with your student in your office and talk to your student and interview your students and ask questions like, for example, questions about any relatives in Australia, any if a student has any family that he would like to bring to Australia with himself, to make sure your student knows everything about the program he is applying to, about the university he is applying to, about the cities, about the Australia in general, to make sure your student knows that some regulations for international students in Australia, like for example that international students can work in Australia 40 hours fortnightly, 20 hours weekly. So these are the things that needs to be communicated to a student. So you will need to prepare students and to prepare him or her both for the interview, GT interview, and to make sure you have genuine answers for the student assessment sheet. Everything needs to be complete on this sheet. It's around like 5 or 7 pages, I believe, so even less. I do have those documents. If you need them, just let me know. I can send it to you upon request. So verified documents, what does it mean? Because I know sometimes it's quite embarrassing or confusing to understand what is meant by verified or certified documents. This means that need to sign or you need to verify the documents you are submitting to the university. So when you have a student transcripts translated into English from a local language, but we need to submit both variants in local language and an English translation. So just put your stamp and sign the documents. That means that you verify the documents. You certify that you've seen the original documents and you send in the copies, and the copies are true and they're true and reliable. So you've seen that all, and you are as being our approved agent and being our valued partner. You're a trusted agent, so the university will totally rely on you that these documents are true and you've seen the original. So this is a very important thing, and it's not difficult. It's just to put your signature, to put the stamp of your agency, and this is the verification process. So it's done. Stage number 2, when we request an unconditional offer before getting the ECOE, confirmation of enrollment. So for the unconditional offer, as you remember, we need to submit the financial document. So financial document, we have 2 separate forms for the financial document. It's called financial assessment form, agent report. So this is the form where you state that you confirm that the student can afford studying in Australia, so that he or she has enough funds, enough money to cover their studies in Australia. And then there is also financial detail form from a student side. So student need to fill this form and also confirm the amount of money the sponsors for his or her studies in Australia. And so then the next one, we would need to sign the acceptance we would need to sign the offer to accept an offer. Student would need to sign the conditional offer to make sure he or she accepts an offer, and we need to submit this document to the university so they can process the documents further on. And well, other conditional documents, if listed on an offer, it can be something specific. It's case by case, but generally speaking, it's just the main 3 documents that are here: financial assessment, financial details, student form, and signed acceptance of an offer. So once we've signed it all, we are moving to stage number 3. So we are requesting for the electronic confirmation of enrollment. And at this stage, students would need to submit the payment, advance payment. It's a must in order to get the ECOE document and fill the visa application after that. For the payment, I will tell you later on, because it also depends on the student nationality, the payment terms and conditions, and on the offer itself. But you'll have this information later on. So the GTE assessment, genuine temporary entrance assessment. So we've just done the admission overview, and now we're moving to the GTE assessment. Well, here you can see some factors that are there are some factors of the reasons why sometimes students can be rejected by the GTE team. So, well, it can be again, it's case by case, and it can be different situations with students, but still the most common factors that are subject to GTE rejection are gaps in education, especially for undergraduate students. Like if a student graduated a school 2-3 years ago, then there is a gap in education, so he didn't enter any local university, nothing happened, it might be a reason to reject the application. It's not the reason for graduate students, because graduate students may have some work experience, so they may have some additional professional courses, whatever. But in general, for undergrads, it's more threat to get the GTE rejection. So gaps in education, immigration history, links, it means like if any visa rejection, previous visa rejection, be also subject to GTE rejection. short-term and long-term goals. This is an important thing, you know. That's why when we are filling the student assessment sheet form, we need to make sure we discuss this with your candidate. So you need to make sure you need to ask those questions about the short-term and long-term career perspectives and goals to make sure your student have a clear answer and like a clear plan about returning to their home country and do some business, start their own business in their home country. So it needs to be a reasonable explanation and confident and yeah, professionally like supported. Well, reason for undertaking the program and its relevance. So it's like, you know, short-term career goals and reasons for undertaking the programs. It's all linked together. So English language proficiency, it's also an important thing because in some countries we do not offer any English courses, but in some countries, for some nationalities, we offer package course with English, embassy English, and the graduate program or undergraduate program. So English proficiency is an important thing at this stage because in general students are applying for higher education programs, which means they will be studying in English and in a foreign country, so that's why it's the GTE team usually pays attention to this as well. Well, research done for other options, and it means that the GTE team can ask your student about the some facts about Sturt University, about campus, about the programs, about internships. So there also might be a question about any other universities your student applied to, if he or she applied to different study destinations and how many universities you applied to. So that also needs to be a prepared answer to that question. So your student needs to be aware of everything for CSU particular in terms of the program, in terms of the university facts, and in general rules for international students in Australia. So it's important. Then some family, relatives, dependents, whoever will be joining the student. If somebody is joining from the family, that needs to be a reason again, that needs to be explained what he or she will be doing in Australia. So it needs to be supported by some financial documents as well, because yeah, because for obvious reasons, it's a risk factor, as Australia is an immigration country. So it needs to be clearly explained to the GTE team about some dependents joining your student in Australia. Academic performance, so the GPA is, I would say the GPA is not the key factor, but one of those factors, of course, based on which the team usually make their decisions. So English proficiency, academic performance, like the GPA, students' GPA, but just please keep in mind that GPA is important, yes, well, but still our team is usually looking beyond the GPA, so they are looking for multiple factors when reviewing the application from a student. So and the last one would be financial ability, again to demonstrate that your student financially prepared and confident and can cover the tuition fees and living expenses in Australia. Well, these are some factors, again, some examples why usually applicant fails to clear an interview with our team. It's again, you know, it's like everything is linked, which I've just told you, and those factors which we've just covered. So here again, lack of knowledge, no research done. If student is not prepared for an interview, then, well, we just need to postpone it until we are absolutely sure the student is ready for an interview and confident about the program and the university. Again, if there are some family members who are traveling together, who are planning traveling together with our applicant to Australia, and there is no background from the family members, so it can be it can be a factor to GTE rejection. So that's why we need to make sure we can, back it up, so we can give the reasonable explanation about the family members traveling to with our applicant. So highlighting friends and relatives in Australia. It's not the bad thing if you have relatives in Australia, not at all, but only if our relatives are legally illegal in Australia. So illegal relatives won't count, I'm afraid, and illegal friends won't count. Otherwise, if there are some relatives who moved to Australia, who've been living, working in Australia, it's like an extra support for our applicant in terms of financial guarantee, maybe, like moral support, whatever, emotional support. So it's not the bad thing, but it needs to be explained again. Over preparation, overconfidence. Well, it's I wouldn't say it happens that often, over preparation, overconfidence, but just in case to keep in mind. English language again, unsure of policy and procedures. This we just need to make sure a student is aware of some living expenses in Australia and some policies, like if international applicants can work in Australia, etc., etc., and if they can stay in Australia after their studies. So students need to know all these details. And of course, our applicants need to be able to explain the purpose and the results, the career outcome they expect from the program. So that's why you need to talk it in more details with your applicant, to make it as a plan, to make it clear for the GTE team, to give this explanation about the purpose and goals of the studies and the career outcome that the student expects. And financials. It's important again to explain who and how will be sponsoring student study. And the last one would be permanent residence. Again, as Australia is an immigration country, the question may be asked about the future plans, about any plans to apply for the permanent residence in Australia. So the answer, so basically our students, the main goal, the main idea of all of this is, of course, just to go and to get the education abroad, and then to come back to our home country and to improve our skills and to increase our professional level. So this is not the immigration purpose, of course, first of all, but different situation happens, of course, but still for the GTE, for the university, the main and the only motivation is to go and study and to improve the professional skills, to get the higher level of education, the higher degree from the overseas university in an English-speaking country. So that's why nothing about immigration. So here are some examples of the visa refusals. Again, I'll share some of these materials with you, and you can read them in more details probably. It's just I'll go, because we have 3 examples of visa refusals. So mostly we have students from Pakistan here as an example, which is not necessarily the thing, but it might happen with every nationality. I mean, it's just the case, well, in this particular case, the applicant is a 20-year-old male from Pakistan. It's actually true cases that happen with students, and this is the evidence from CSU. It's just to share with you how it worked, and where we need to be careful and where we need to be very attentive with which type of applicant. So with this case, for example, the student has started his studies in the home country, but then he dropped and decided to go to study in Australia to get a different type of a degree, different type of program, and then to join the family business. But in this case, he didn't demonstrate enough of the benefits studying abroad, and he didn't demonstrate to the GTE team enough of the confidence and enough of the explanations for the outcome of his studies. So that's why a lack of commitment is also, a lack of awareness is also the part of the rejection and refusals. That's why it needs to be pretty clear about the, again, the study plan, the program, the goals, and the motivations. So just one of the examples. Please feel free when you have a time and when I send you those materials. Please feel free to read it just for your knowledge, for your experience. Well, the second case is about, again, the one of the applicants who have two degrees, undergraduate degrees from a local country, from a local university, from the home country, and then they are applying for graduate studies in Australia. And again, it can be sometimes, it can be GTE can refuse the application just because it's the same type of the program, or it's a totally different type of the program. And that's why in both cases we need to make sure we explain the goals, we explain the purposes, it's a clear outcome for the career and the benefits of studying abroad. So that's why this is actually the case where the student didn't demonstrate the links or the benefits he would get from studying abroad, the same type of program, the same type of business program studying again in Australia. And so the last one would be about the candidate who is a 30-year-old male from Pakistan, which probably happened some time ago, with one of our students. And at a certain, if you remember, I was telling you about the gaps in education or the certain age. Again, it can be case by case, but if a student quite an adult and a professional, and he has quite a confident professional experience and achievements in his or her career in the home country. So that's why we need to demonstrate the benefits and the outcome he will get from studying abroad in Australia. Otherwise, it looks like there is a student who is who is an adult, who has been studying, who's been successful in his or her professional life in her home country, and somehow, for some reasons, he or she wants to go to Australia at a certain age. It just becomes more risky. That's why, it needs to be supported with a statement of purpose, and also during the personal interview, students need to demonstrate this confidence and clearly the outcome, the benefits of studying abroad, and demonstrate the willingness to come back home, to do something at home after completing education abroad in Australia. So either family business or some career perspectives at a company, some on a different level of the career ladder. So those type of things needs to be those type of things needs to be very well prepared and very well prepared in advance. Yeah. And moving on. So the GTE. The GTE status of application is approved. When it's approved, it moves to another level. It moves to the academic assessment. So just to remind you, just to sum it up, so first of all the admission stage, then the GTE stage, and then the academic assessment. So we send our documents to the admission. The GTE team has approved the genuine status of the student, then the academic assessment. So the team looks in more details into the GPA and the English level of a student. And then once the student meets the academic assessment, but by the way, all the entry requirements are listed on the website for each country. All the the entry requirements for each country for undergraduate and graduate majors are listed on the CSU website. So it's all, you can check it out before sending the application, or if you have any doubts or it's not a standard case, again, we can look into this all together. But just please don't send it to the team directly, because our admission team don't do any case-by-case assessment just based on the academics. We need to the admission team, we need to send the full package with the application form, with the student assessment form, with transcripts and IELTS and TOEFL. If you have any doubts, just better send it to myself and I will have a look. I will help you with entry requirements, so we will look into more details. But just to let you know that don't expect that this CSU admission team will review it case by case on just the GPA level, so it won't happen. It's better to stay in touch with people like myself or your partner sales manager again. The financial assessment. So these are, one of the most important part as well, the financial assessment. So this is almost the final stage before getting the ECOE, the Electronic Confirmation of Enrollment. So required documents. We would need to submit the financial declaration student form. This is the form where your student states and confirms that he or she has enough funds to cover the tuition fees and living expenses in Australia. Or if there is a sponsor, it needs to be filled and signed by the student and sponsors as well. The second one is the financial assessment agent report. So this form needs to be filled and signed by you guys, by our agents, and after doing the complete verification, after you verify the status of the financial status of your student, because you can talk to your client honestly and quite open about the financial things, because it all results in a visa, either approval or refusal. So that's why your student needs to make sure, so he or she confess and he or she financial funds to you. So after you've done this, after you complete and verify the document and interview the student and sponsor, you should fill the financial assessment agent report. So this is the verification and confirmation from your side that the student is genuine. And the supporting documents, financial supporting documents and income savings, loan letters, as I told you. You see, there is no bank statement because the financial documents means basically everything, the combination of different types of documents. But the bank statement is the most, well, again, like based on my experience, is the most common one, but for some countries I know it's challenging to provide the bank statement document just because parents don't keep those amounts in their bank accounts. But if we have if there isn't a possibility to submit a bank statement, please ask your students or sponsor to do this, because it's actually one of the very standard documents. Financial assessment process. The two financial forms and the supporting documents, either income or saving statements, loan letters, etc. They are reviewed very carefully by the team, and so the team doing the verification. And at this stage, there might be some clarification, that is required by the team. Like from, again, my experience, there were questions. Sometimes if a student is sponsored by the company, it might be some additional questions about the sponsoring body. There might be some additional documents like tax income document from a company, or just the confirmation from a company that the student is sponsored by the private entity or governmental body, etc. So these are the additional documents, additional clarification that might be required from the team. But again, this is just the university, and you remember, as I told, the responsibility is at the university level at the moment, and it's all done just to make it easier for us to apply for the final stage for the visa. Talking about the payment in advance, in order to get the electronic confirmation of enrollment, we would need to submit the payment in advance. It's different for every nationality, it's different for country, it's different for every country. So just basically for the rest of the world, here we're talking about well, countries like we're talking about basically Central Asia, Africa, some other countries. So usually students needs to pay 3 subjects in advance. So 3 subjects. It's not payment. It's not done by term, but it's by subject. So usually it's 3 subjects in advance in order to get the ECOE, electronic confirmation of enrollment. One subject is around $2,800 Australian dollars. So you can have again the full price, the list with prices. The prices are stated on the CSU brochure. So on the website, if you need it, you can send an email to me. I'll send it to you. But just remember, it's subject-based payment, advance payment, and usually it's 3 subjects. For students from Pakistan in particular, it's 8 subjects, and we don't offer any English courses, a packaged offer in Pakistan. So it's usually 8 subjects in advance before getting the electronic confirmation of enrollment. So here you can see the package payment requirements. So again, you will have this information. You don't need to learn it by heart to keep it in mind all the time. You'll have this information as a tip, as a presentation. But these are some examples, and these are the payment requirements. So well, if we have the English academic, if you have a packaged offer, English plus undergraduate studies, so usually it's 100% of the English course that needs to be paid, and also the CSU deposit, $2,500. And then it depends on the duration of the English level preparation, it depends on the English program preparation. It's either up to 24 weeks or then more than 24 weeks. The amounts are a bit different, the payment scheme is a bit different. So you may know that we work with Martin College. Martin College is not a higher education division, but it's a career division. It's like vocational courses, some diploma courses. For some students in some countries where the high school system is not 12 years, for example, but 11 years, and students need to have 1 year in addition to meet the direct entry requirement to the university. We offer Martin College program. Martin College is a 1-year program that is packaged with the CSU programs for undergraduate students. So for those students, again, it's just for those countries for those students, for those applicants who don't meet the direct entry requirements. We package those programs with Martin College, and you can see here that it goes like this. It's usually an English program plus 1 semester of tuition fees at Martin College, and also the CSU deposit toward the CSU studies. So students will get their different ECOE, several ECOE, but they would be applying to a visa only once, so like for showing the full period of studies, so showing the full package of the studies. So that's the main idea of the packaged offers. Different electronic confirmation of enrollment with 1 visa for the whole period. Moving on, because we are running out of time, I believe. And so the living expenses. Again, for the financial documents, there are certain amount that needs to be shown on the financial documents from a student side. If talking about the applicant in terms of travel expenses, we would need to submit and show the return air ticket to Australia plus overseas students' healthcare insurance. So the insurance is usually it's a must to have when you are applying for a visa. The insurance can be provided by us, by study group, Sturt University, but also it can be purchased by student directly if it's. But just we need to, please make sure it just it's just exactly the type of insurance that is required by the Australian embassy. So it could be both options. Student can submit their own insurance, but it needs to be the insurance that is recognized by the by Australian border, or it can be our insurance. So family members, you can see here that if there are some family members traveling with our students, there must be again one return airfare ticket to Australia and also the healthcare insurance. In terms of tuition fees, so the students, your student would need to pay the would need to make those payments I've shown you before, and living expenses. Again, for the applicant, it's very important to remember this amount, 18,610. So this is the living expenses in Australia per year. The GTE team may ask your student during the interview about living expenses in Australia, if your student is aware of the amount of the living expenses. So this is the amount, this is the answer to this question. So please remember this, 18,610. This is for your applicant, living expenses for 1 year in Australia. So, well, after the financial conditions are met, and student then can process with their payment and can request for an ECOE and then apply for a visa, and when the visa is approved, so we are happy and we're traveling to amazing Australia to start our academic course. Well, this is it for now. I hope there was a kind of a structured materials for you, but if we may just repeat this session after 3-4 months again if there are any updates on new regulations, or just as a refreshment training in a session. I'll send you this presentation, just another 5 minutes to spend on some questions. So yes, well, please send me your questions directly, because so there are some questions already here. I'll try to spend some time and to read them. But again, guys, if it's just case by case with students, if it's just a case by case with your students, please feel free to drop me a line on Skype or by email so we can talk in more details, because I understand. So there is a question that so there is some so there is some comment from here in the question box that ground reality is very different from the facts, and from the DIBP website and the SVP visa process are taking longer. I understand all this, and the material that I presented, this is the presentation. Let it be just the well, like a base structure for you. So some things you need to rely on, some things you know from your experience, and some things can be just applicable to a specific country, to a specific nationality. So that's why I understand it's not like a general, or it's not like it's not like a obligatory thing for everybody, and it's not like evidence and the truth 100% for each case in each country, especially talking about the visa turnaround time. It can be different, I understand, from country to country, to nationality, from nationality to nationality. With financial documents, I know that from practical experience it also can be different stories, different cases with bank statement and loans, etc. So I would say those facts are just the information for you, so that is required in general. So these are just the rules in general, but for each cases it can be different. So what are some question here about the bank statement. Yes, for the SVP process there is a question about the bank statement. So the bank letters does not need to be at the bank for 3-6 months for the SVP. Right, yes, this is correct. The main advantage of the SVP is now that we don't need to submit the bank statement with a high amount of money that has been sitting in a bank for 3 to 6 months. It used to be before SVP was introduced, so that rule was in place. But now with the SVP process, it's not obligatory. It's not a must to keep the money on a bank account for from 3 to 6 months. So it's easier now in this aspect with the SVP, and this is one of the main advantages of the SVP. So for the language courses, do students who study general English language need ECOE? So it depends on the duration of the English course, I believe, because we mostly, I'm just covering the higher education program or packaged offers, and those students who are going to Australia for English plus bachelor or master's degree, they do need ECOEs, that's it. So there is also a question about some high school students who worked for some time before deciding to apply to the university. This is the case. There might be a GTE rejection, as I told you, remember, if there are some gaps in education, especially for undergraduate students. So it needs to be a very well, I've used the word confident. Confident means it needs to be a reliable explanation, like it needs to be reasonable explanation. You know, if for some reason student probably he or she improved her English at English level, if he or she traveled abroad or did something for the family business. So it needs to be a statement of purpose which we can submit to the GTE team, and also GTE will review it, and there might be a case for the student visa interview, sorry, for the GTE interview as well. Not the visa, but the GTE interview as well. It can be rejected, but if it's explained reasonably, if there is an evidence, paper evidence of the fact that students either, improved their qualification or did some vocational courses, English courses, or just did something for the family business, it can be reviewed by the team. It can be a positive outcome as well. For the graduate students, it's just a different story, because they usually for the graduate students it's okay to have gaps in education. Well, overconfidence, yeah, that's a good question. So there is a question: what is meant by the overconfidence? It might be sometimes that the students are too confident about their knowledge, about their success. I mean, again, about their success, about their overconfident, maybe too arrogant even. Well, again, it didn't happen. I haven't met those students that much in my professional life, but sometimes it might be that students are too confident that they can be just accepted by any university, but in reality they, for example, have not very high GPA, or the English level is not that good. So, and demonstrating this overconfidence but not having a relevant evidence for anything like supporting to that, it might be again it might be a reason to reject this applicant. So again, just guys, because we are running out of time, there are some more questions. I'll just I apologize for those questions that I haven't answered today, but again, I'll send you the materials, and please feel free to reach me out and send me your questions if there is any specific case from your experience. So by Skype or email, I'll try to help you clarify those things. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your patience today, and have a good rest of the day, and hopefully we'll talk soon then. Bye-bye for now.